Hey guys, how's it going? Um, got this new book called the New Testament in Hebrew, and now this is going to totally change everyone's perspective once again. So, as you know, I'm a textual criticism kind of guy, so I want to know what the Bible's saying. And most of the time, we are taught that the New Testament was only preserved in the Greek. However, this book has evidence to show that is not the case. That we do have Hebrew New Testaments, and that the prophets actually wrote in Hebrew instead of Greek. I know it sounds crazy, but let's just get into it. According to the 1958 edition of the Oxford Dictionary of the Christian Church, Hebrew ceased to be a spoken language around the 4th century BC. Now, in 1997, it says the Hebrew continued to be a spoken language and written language in the New Testament period. So the change by Oxford Dictionary is vital for several reasons. It helps demonstrate that by the first half of the 20th century, uh, modern scholars reached a unanimous opinion that they didn't know Hebrew, uh, you know, after the 4th century BC, or that it wasn't even a spoken language. However, it remained the same until the latter half of the 20th century when we found the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it showed how Hebrew did flourish as a living spoken language. So it's interesting that these scholars have a like almost 50 years of misinformation, and that's what most people are quoting today. And we can see in the book of Acts 26, it says, when he had fallen to the ground, it's talking about Saul or Paul, I heard a voice saying to me in the Hebrew dialect, Saul, Saul. And also this other Bible verse, it says, now at this time, I think it's Acts 26, while disciples were increasing in number, a complaint arose as part of the Hellenistic Jews against the native Hebrews. Okay, it's distinguishing between the sort of Greek-speaking Jews who would use the Septuagint later on and the native Hebrews who weren't even allowed to learn Greek. Okay, these scholars are relying on outdated sources before the 20th century. Okay, and Greeks were pagans, and the Jews considered the Greek language an abomination. And Jewish authorities declared it was the worst. It's worse to learn Greek than to eat swine's flesh or eat bacon. And they forbade the teaching of it. Even Josephus mentions it. Um, so so why would God choose a pagan foreign tongue to reveal to his New Testament plan, especially to Jewish people? Okay, and most of them hated Greek. That's very interesting. And he even says his apostles were unlearned and ignorant men, so how would they know, multiple languages? Bullinger, another guy we know about, he says that the language is Greek, but the thoughts and idioms are Hebrew, and that's very important. We're going to go into that. Excuse me. All right. It's by Dr. Al Garza, by the way, one of two guys I'll be referring to. Now let's get to the authorities, the church fathers. Epiphanius says, the Nazarenes have the gospel according to Matthew quite complete in Hebrew. For this gospel is certainly still preserved among them as it was in Hebrew letters. Ishodad says Matthew's book was in existence in Caesarea Palestine, and everyone acknowledges that he wrote it in the hands of Hebrew. Okay, now we got Clement of Alexandria said Paul wrote it in Hebrew and Luke translated it into Greek. Okay, that's also an important factor. And Jerome says, let's see, since Paul was writing to the Hebrews, he being a Hebrew wrote in Hebrew. Okay. According to this other guy, Nehemiah Gordon, who we're going to be also looking into, he says there's more than 27 Hebrew manuscripts of the Gospel of Matthew. Okay, and one of the most famous is Shem Tov's, this guy. And ironically, he preserved the Hebrew Gospel as he was trying to refute it. He was actually going into some debates with the Christians because he was a Jew, of course, and as he was debating the New Testament, he was ironically recording it for future ages. Okay? It's very cool. First, why are there untranslated Hebrew words in the New Testament? It seems like a dead giveaway all by itself. We have Abba, Rabbi, Hosanna, these other words, Sabbath, Satan, Emmanuel. These are all Hebrew words. Why wouldn't they just use the Greek words? And many sentences have the verb noun reversal that's common in Hebrew. and other Semitic languages, but not in Greek. And they say that the New Testament is not good Greek, but it's excellent Hebrew grammar. It's so crazy. But of course, all these original manuscripts are lost. So we have two complete versions of Matthew with Shem Tov and Du Tillet. I think the oldest ones are around 1300. Okay, we got some more here. Yeah, more founding fathers, Papias, or early church fathers, I should say. Matthew put down the words of the Lord in the Hebrew language. Irenaeus. Matthew also issued a written gospel among the Hebrews in their own dialect. Origen. The first gospel composed in the Hebrew language was written by Matthew. Eusebius. Matthew had first preached to the Hebrews when he was about to go to others also. He transmitted his gospel in writing in his native language, which is Hebrew. And Jerome again, he said it was published in Judea in Hebrew for the sake of those of the circumcision who believed, and afterwards was translated into Greek. That's so crazy, y'all. I mean, this is like when I discovered the Septuagint, now it's regarding the Old Testament. I used to think the Old Testament was the Hebrew, but now I see the Greek Septuagint is valid. And now I used to think the New Testament was only Greek, but I see the Hebrew New Testament now is valid. And so in 1987, this guy George Howard published a book of the Matthew text that predates, the text itself predates the 14th century, but its source, where it comes from, is much older, and we believe it's from some of the original Hebrew that Matthew and the people wrote. Okay. I'll explain that part later. And of course, Matthew 1:23, a virgin will conceive and bear a son, and they'll call his name Emmanuel, which means God with us. Okay? The Greek word literally refers to translate or to explain what Emmanuel means from Hebrew into Greek. Why would the scribe have to explain what a Hebrew word means if it was originally written in Greek? That's so interesting. The scribe copying Matthew's Hebrew gospel into Greek had to explain the meaning behind the word name Emmanuel, and that's why it's included. All right, here's a cool picture of the Shem Tov Matthew, New Testament in Hebrew. Some more pictures y'all can check out. It's pretty sweet. And here's some other images of that New Testament in Hebrew. Some from 1700, some from the 1400s, some from 1800s, but the source material that this Hebrew text is coming from, see, 1300 to 1500, is most likely from an older Hebrew source, y'all. Okay, that's part one. Now let's get into this guy, Nehemiah Gordon. He has some good YouTube videos you can check out. Now, in the Hebrew Matthew, there's a lot of Hebrew puns that wouldn't be translatable in Greek. For instance, Matthew 12, 13, and 15. It says, Then he said to the man, Stretch out your hand, and he stretched out, vayet, his hand. And it was after this that Yeshua knew, and he turned, vayet, from there, and many sick people went after him. It's like a pun. It's like a James Joyce triple meaning. The scriptures hide this kind of stuff, but in the correct language. Okay, the parable of debt in Matthew 18:23, it says shalem, to pay 5 times, like they emphasized it. So later, he said, So shall my Father in heaven do if you do not forgive each man his brother with a complete heart, aka shalem heart. So to pay and complete, tzedakah, charity, is tied together with that word pun. So interesting. Some info about Shem Tov's publications. He had the Disputations, is what it was called. He was a 14th century Spanish Jew, and that's what preserved Matthew in the Old Testament. Here's another Hebrew pun. Adam is Adam, first man, and Adamah is ground, which is where he comes from. So these original languages are hiding puns and, double meanings. Naked, Arumim in Genesis 2:25, referring to Adam and Eve, is very similar to the snake being clever, the serpent, Arum, in Genesis 3:1. Okay, they have kind of a connection there. As well as Jeremiah 1:11, here's another Hebrew pun. I see an almond branch, and God said to me, you've seen well, for I am diligent to my word. Almond is sheker, and choked is sheker as well. And the crowd saw Vayiru, and they feared Vayiru very much. Matthew 9:8. So these are all examples of the Hebrew puns in both the Old and New Testament that we should be considering and wondering why they're there. And a lot of Greek scholars will say this verse is what proves it was written in Greek. Matthew 16:18. You are Peter, Petros, and upon this rock, Petra, will I build my church. Okay, that's a good point. However, let's turn the tables. In Hebrew, you are a stone, Eben, and I will build, Ebene, my house of prayer upon you. So even in the Hebrew New Testament, the word pun still is valid. So you can't say it was just the Greek because of that verse, because it had a pun, because the original Hebrew retains the pun in a different language. That's so amazing, yo. Okay, Papaya said, yeah, Matthew collected the words in the Hebrew language and each translated as best as they could. Some more images of the Shem Tov Matthew manuscript from different libraries. Okay, now let's get into something here. Matthew 23:2. This is one of the primary reasons we should be studying the Hebrew text. I'm serious. This is a very important verse. The scribes and Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. All therefore whatsoever they bid you observe, that observe and do. But do ye not after their works, but do not ye after their works, for they say and do not. Okay. So anyway, this word they in the Greek it is plural. The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. All therefore whatsoever the Pharisees bid you observe, that you observe. And all the rabbis and Orthodox Jews would love this verse because it says, do what the Pharisees say. Doesn't that seem a little weird? Let's look at the Hebrew. Yomera, or Yomar, right here. Okay, I already did that. And now, what does the Hebrew Matthew say? The Pharisees and sages sit upon the seat of Moses. Therefore, all that he, Moses, says to you, diligently do. But according to their reforms and their precedents, do not do, because they talk, but they do not do. So yeah, the Greek says they, as if the Pharisees have authority, but the Hebrew Matthew, the original language it was written in, says he, Moses. Do what Moses does, not what these Pharisees do. Isn't that incredible? Okay. Let's see. Okay, in the Greek Matthew 5:33 says, again, you've heard that it said to people long ago, do not break your oath, but keep the oaths you have made to the Lord. But I tell you, Jesus, do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it is his footstool. So yeah, it says don't swear. And anything beyond this comes from the evil one. However, Deuteronomy 6:13 says, you shall fear God, Yahweh your God, Adonai, and you shall worship him, and his name shall you swear. So how can we swear but not swear? Deuteronomy 10:20, and is his name you shall you swear. So a lot of skeptics will say that's contradictory. However, they don't know anything about textual criticism. Okay. Let's see. Another example is a Greek Matthew. Sorry, I wasn't finished with that other thought. I apologize. So anyway, the Hebrew Matthew, it says, he who swears by the altar swears by it and by all that is in it. Dang it, where's that picture, bro? Sorry, here it is. Hebrew Matthew says, do not swear by anything falsely, not by heaven, which is the throne, nor by the earth, his footstool. Okay, so the Greek says don't swear at all, even though Deuteronomy says to swear. But the Hebrew Matthew says don't swear falsely, which makes much more logical sense, y'all. I'm sorry. It's textual criticism stuff does affect doctrine. Okay, it's not just flowery KJV language versus modern day NIV language. It actually changes doctrine. Okay, so we shouldn't swear falsely. And that's the main takeaway from that lesson. Okay. All right. So the Greek says you should be against swearing at all. However, the Torah and these Hebrew Gospels say you should swear. You shouldn't swear falsely. Okay, that's so crazy. And actually, the Greek Matthew agrees as well. So the Greek goes against itself. However, if everything were Hebrew, it makes perfect sense. Yeah. Okay. I'll go into that one later. All right. Almost done here, y'all. Sorry. I just, this is one of those books I read in a day and then watched YouTube videos all day to study some more. Now, we all know this verse. In Hebrew, it's Jesus crying out. Well, actually, I don't want to do that one. It's not in order. Psalm 22, of course, says, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And in the Greek Matthew that we have, it says, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani," which is Aramaic. Okay? Like in the Greek, uh, like that's what it says in the Greek, transliteration. That's what it sounds like, just like it's what it sounds like when we type it out in English. However, the Hebrew Matthew has it in Hebrew. Eli, Eli, lama atzavtani. So Hebrew and Aramaic are basically the same. There's only about 5 letters that are different, but it kind of shows something. So the Greek has Aramaic and the Hebrew has Hebrew. So why is there a split there? Because the the most logical outcome is because it was first written in Hebrew, and then they translated into Aramaic, and then they translated into the Greek. So the Greek isn't even a copy of the original. It's a copy of a copy, according to this theory, which I am starting to very much believe. So now we got to look at the age of a manuscript versus the age of composition. Obviously, with Josephus, he was writing, the first century, or I can't remember, but the earliest thing we have is the 10th century. So we only have his composition, not the actual manuscript itself. Okay. And now Acts 26, we were showing how it says speak in Aramaic, and that's what Jesus did. And the Greek word for Aramaic is Ibradi, which equals Hebrew. Okay. All right, y'all. That's basically it. You need to get this book, New Testament in Hebrew. It's only 175 pages, but it's very dense with awesome information and pictures. Um, and yeah, check out this other guy. Um, Forgot his name. But yeah, I'll post links. So take it easy, y'all. So we've gone from the Old Testament is actually has a Greek Septuagint older source text, and now we see the New Testament has a older Hebrew text. It's like we're in backwards land. Most religious people think, oh yeah, Old Testament Hebrew, New Testament Greek. Well, we've just flipped both of them literally. Okay. Oy, take it easy, y'all.